Welcome back to Fast Market, everyone. Kevin Hinks back here for the second segment of our show. Joe Mazzola has agreed to stay with me, but now I'd like to bring in the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, Mr. Andy Swan, to the show. He's going to look at some consumer staples, and it's barbecue season, Andy, so why not we look at Coke, Pepsi, and maybe a little Frito-Lay as we're looking in there. Andy, what do you have for us on this consumer staple, which, by the way, if you look at Pepsi in the month of April with the overall S&P down 8.8%, Pepsi was up 2.6%, Andy. This is a good place to hang out in a bumpy market. What do you have for us in the beverage or salty snack sector?
Yeah, really defensive names here that people tend to flock to in environments like this. I think, when we look at these, we try to just compare the two versus each other. Which one is doing better with consumers between Coke and Pepsi? Pepsi has an enormous, like you referred to with the Frito-Lay, everything Eatos is Pepsi in the grocery store. They have an enormous footprint in grocery stores. Coca-Cola has an enormous footprint in the restaurant and fast food business. And we're really seeing a strong resurgence in the consumer in terms of coming back to restaurants and eating fast food. And we think that's benefiting Coca-Cola quite a bit because the price pressures that Coca-Cola can pass through to restaurants, a lot of that is long-term contracts that they have already in place. So there's really not much choice in terms of restaurateurs or consumers deciding what they're going to do. Coca-Cola has those locked in, and more people in the restaurants and at fast food drive-thrus means more business for Coca-Cola. On the flip side, for Pepsi, we do see, people are fine with Pepsi products. The only problem is that inflationary pressures are really starting to drive consumers, especially in the grocery store, towards private label brands and away from the brand names. And so we're seeing some indication that Pepsi could be one of those companies that's getting hit by consumer flipping to the generic products at this point. And so when we compare the two companies, we think both are doing pretty well, but we give the leg up to Coca-Cola because of its placement in restaurants, fast food places. It's fairly inflation-proof in those areas. Whereas at the grocery store, you have a lot more exposure to the daily whims of the consumer, which are paying more at the pump and have less money to spend on, their colas and snacks, and maybe instead switching towards the private label brands that actually benefit the Krogers, the Walmarts, and the Targets of the world more than they do the Pepsis and Coca-Colas.
Andy, the diversity of brands, which had made Pepsi kind of a leader for a while, right? I mean, offering a lot of different things outside of just cola. Is that to a certain extent? Are you saying that because of inflationary pressures, that's actually kind of hurting the value of the company now because of the fact that it's not kind of centered on goods where they have a little bit of that pricing pressure?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think this is one of those companies where as your everyday shoppers walking through the aisles, they may love Pepsi products, they may love their Doritos and Frito-Lays, but if you've just spent over $100 at the gas pump, it may be time to switch to Kroger brand soda or skip the chips altogether. And that's just one of those pressure points we're starting to see bubble up from the consumer that could have a significantly negative impact really on both of these companies, but more so on Pepsi because of its reliance on that direct consumer through the grocery store channel, whereas Coca-Cola has really built out channels that people are flocking to in restaurants and higher end dining experiences.
Andy, how much does your data show any sensitivity to the price of the commodities when you look at a company like Frito-Lay? I get the whole, going to a restaurant versus staying home. You're not buying fountain drinks, you're buying cans and bottles and 2 liters and things to drink. But, the price of commodities right now, let's say corn, so much of what Frito-Lay makes is corn, and you've got corn starting out the summer at record highs. Now, I know I shop at a local grocery store near my house. You couldn't get a Frito in that store for a couple months. Are they running into problems like that? There are no deals on salty snacks now. They're all priced at full boat going across. So what are you seeing in terms of commodity costs filtering into higher costs for these products? Because they're not cheap anymore.
Yeah, I think, we don't really track, much on the commodities prices because we're a consumer insights company, but the consumer insights that we are seeing are that price sensitivity is starting to become more and more of an issue, and it's accelerating in a really strong way. So I don't think that Pepsi or Coca-Cola really has the ability to pass through price increases, maybe like they would have had in other years. The consumer's getting hit from all angles, and we're kind of hitting this perfect storm moment where the consumer is really, really in a bad way. And the Pepsis and Cokes of the world, while they are, kind of consumer staples, there are alternatives that have gotten much, much better. And we see it all the time in our data. You go to the Costco data, it's the Kirkland brand that people love. You go to Kroger,
Sure.
It's their generic brands that people actually really like because these products have gotten fairly close in quality. And I think that's an interesting dynamic for a company like Pepsi and Coke. Just may not be as safe of a play in an inflationary environment as people think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And this is going to be an interesting summer in many ways. And you're already seeing it change people's behaviors in grocery stores, Andy, and across, gas, crude oil. The price of gas, it hurts everything. Remember, here's a little tidbit. PepsiCo is one of the largest employers of trucks and truck drivers in the country. So right there is added cost to get these goods from one place to another. So I just think there's a lot of different metrics going on here that are going to affect prices of these goods. Andy, you do a great job, as always, of bringing us the thing that's on the tip of the consumer's mind. We appreciate you having on, as always. Andy Swan, have a great day. He is Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com. Thanks for coming on, Andy.